Risk management in 3 minutes. Risk management plan is made. It defines how the risk management process will be handled. Is your organization risk seeker, risk averse, neutral? What is the threshold and tolerance of your organization? Risk management plan does not have any risk in it. It only has the procedures how the entire risk process will happen. You identify the risk using SWOT analysis, OPS, EF, expert judgment, focus group, and all other documents. You identify the risk, put it in a document that is called a risk register. Then you rank the risk qualitatively, probability and impact, and quantitatively using tools like tornado analysis, sensitivity diagram, decision tree analysis, expected monitoring analysis, and other tools. Once you have prioritized all the identifier risk through qualitative and quantitative risk analysis, now you put a response for both opportunity, that are positive risk, and negative risk, that are known as threat. For positive risk, we have exploit, where you increase probability and impact; enhance, where you only increase probability or impact; and share. For negative risk, we have avoid, where we make sure either probability is zero or impact is zero. Zero multiplied by anything is zero. Or if you cannot avoid the risk, you either mitigate the risk, which means decreasing the probability or impact, or you transfer it to somebody. Remember, when you transfer the risk to somebody, you have to pay them something premium, like insurance or something like that. Now, for both positive and negative risk, if they move away from the threshold, remember, risk management plan talks about what is the threshold, and every organization have different threshold. You escalate it to the senior. For both risk, we have acceptance. All these avoid, mitigate, transfer are proactive strategies. Acceptance is reactive strategy, where you identify the risk, but you make a plan. If that risk occur, you use the contingency plan, or plan B, fallback plan. We assign the risk owners who look at the triggers of the risk and implement that contingency plan. And if a residual risk occur or a secondary risk occur, they are handled in that proper way. Anything that is identified before happening is a risk. Anything that is identified after happening, it's an issue. You make a risk report, that's an overall summary of the project. And in this way, you tackle every single risk. You do risk audit to understand are you following the proper risk process or not, and risk review meeting to look at the reserves left. This is the entire risk summary in 3 minutes for you. Agile is a mindset. It is combination of 4 values, 12 principles, and multiple practices like Scrum, Crystal, Kanban, XP, etc. etc. In the PMP perspective, you need to master 4 values. Let's discuss them. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation. We want to help out the customer. We want to facilitate the customer. We want to add value to that. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Contract is important, but collaborating with the customer, working with the customer is more important. If they want delivery in parts, we give them in parts. That is make MVP, minimum viable product, or minimum business product increment for them. Give them the thing that they need to get the market advantage. In order to do that, the second value help us, that is respond to a change or following a plan. Since we want to harness change for the benefit of the customer, so we respond to the change or following a plan. Plan is good. Agile does planning, high level adaptive planning, progressive elaboration, but if the change come, we don't need a change request, change control board. We respond to the change, add the change immediately in the product backlog, and we handle those change as we move forward. We want like individual and interaction over processes are tool. That is third value. This value states that the team is important, not the processes. Yes, processes are the keys, but how the team works, how the team co-locate, identify it, find the best practices, that is something important. Fourth value, whatever works is good. That is working software over comprehensive documentation. Yes, documentation has been the key in predictive, but here we want to harness the change. We want to collaborate with the customer. We want to identify new ways of doing work. So we cannot always go for the documentation. Working software, whatever works is the important thing, is the most critical thing. So we work into that. The 12 principles kind of a extension of these four values. Like we want to have incremental delivery, we want to have a team who works face to face, we want to simplify the processes, don't do extra thing, we want to have a sustainability, continuous work, we want dedicated team, we want a motivated individual, we want to make sure that the customer works, that business people work together, and all other methodologies, Scrum, Kanban, they reflect these principles. Understand that Agile is mindset, which customer is the key. We have people who want to learn, we train them, we guide them, we coach them like a mother or father does. You are a servant leader, helping the team, guiding the team, and focusing all the time on value and engaging or navigating the risk. If you understand this thing, you master your Agile for your PMP exam. I hope that makes sense to you. Scrum in 3 minutes. Scrum has 5 events. Sprint itself 1 to 4 week duration, minimum 1 week, maximum 4 week. Normally it is 2 weeks. Sprint planning. In sprint planning, we make a plan what we are going to do in the entire sprint. Then daily stand up, which is progress sharing meeting. We ask 3 questions in that. What you have done yesterday, what you are going to do today, is there any roadblocks or impediment? That's it. 15 minutes, same time, same location. We only discuss these things, status sharing. Sprint review. In sprint review, we basically show what we have completed. The user stories, which are requirement in Agile, we show them whether they are completed according to definition of done. Definition of done is checklist that the team used to make sure user stories are completed. And client check them according to the acceptance criteria. Again, a checklist that is with the client. So once the client accepted, good. Then the last ceremony here is sprint retrospective, lesson learned meeting. Here we identify the improvements that can be done for the next sprint. So 5 events: sprint, sprint planning, daily stand up, sprint review, sprint retrospective. 3 documents: product backlog, which is a list of all the user story, all the requirement. The product backlog has been prioritized by high value, high risk. What is the most important thing we want to do right now? Product backlog. Sprint backlog, what we want to do in this patent sprint. In this patent sprint, it is actually a subset of product backlog. Every sprint will have a different sprint backlog. Product increment. When in sprint review, customer accept something, it goes into product increment. Goes into product increment. In sprint review, if a customer requests a new user story, or if a user story is incomplete because Agile talks about 100% completion, or a new user story is added, it goes into product backlog and we reprioritize. That is called grooming of product backlog. So product backlog, sprint backlog, product increment, 3 artifacts. Then 3 roles: product owner, the person who defines the value of the product, which thing is more value. Team member, who will decide how the things are going to be completed, when you should complete it, the velocity, what the velocity, that is the time required to complete a, like velocity is the number of story point you complete in a sprint, and story point is the effort required to complete something. The team will decide the velocity, story point. And then a scrum master, servant leader, the person who will help the team, who will facilitate that, who will try to remove the impediment like a mother or father. Product owner, scrum master, and team, that is Scrum in 3 minutes. Stakeholder topic in 3 minutes. You identify the stakeholders through OPS, organizational process asset, which has lesson learned register. You identify them using enterprise environmental factor, political, economical, social, technical, legal, environmental, all internal and external. You ask the expert judgment, your sponsors, you review business case, business benefit management plan, project charter. All these documents are reviewed. Now you have thousands of stakeholders. You put them into your stakeholder register. It's an important thing. You identify as many stakeholders as possible in this stage. Once you have all the stakeholder, the next thing is to categorize them. who are the important stakeholder, who are not important. First we do the categorization as upward, downward, internal, external and sidewards. Once we have categorized the stakeholder in this way, the next thing would be prioritizing them using maybe power interest matrix or salience model or stakeholder cube. Once you have categorized the stakeholder as the power interest matrix, now the initiation is completed, your stakeholder register is updated. Now we go to planning. Here we make stakeholder engagement plan. Stakeholder engagement plan has the strategies required to engage the stakeholder. The strategies that are required to engage the stakeholders. We take important stakeholders with high power, high interest and put them into stakeholder engagement matrix. Stakeholder engagement matrix is a tool, put it in the stakeholder engagement plan, which check the current engagement level of the stakeholder and your desired engagement level of the stakeholder. It has unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, leading, at which level currently the stakeholder is and what do you desire. You make the stakeholder engagement plan having all the strategy, then once the sponsor approve that plan, you start implementing that plan in the execution phase. And through the monitoring and control, you keep on checking if the current engagement level and the desire is change, you raise a change request to update your stakeholder engagement plan. Please note that in order to update the stakeholder engagement plan, you need a change request. But in order to update the stakeholder register, like a stakeholder is identified at any stage of the project, you will directly put him into the stakeholder register. There is no need to update, there is no need for any change request. A new stakeholder is identified, you put him into the stakeholder register, categorize, prioritize. Now if you need to update the stakeholder plan because of the new updated strategy, now you may need a change request. That's an important thing. One more time, a new stakeholder is identified, you put him in the stakeholder register, then you update the stakeholder engagement plan through raising the change request, and then the entire project management plan is updated with the same change request. I hope that makes sense for the stakeholder. That is very important for PMP exam. See you. In this video, let me give you a list of things. If you know them, if you understand well, you understand Agile in PMP. First of all, what are the 4 values of Agile? What those value means? What are those 12 principles in Agile? What those principles actually mean? They are kind of a cornerstone of the entire PMP exam. Like the team member can be co-located and it's the best thing. Team members should do one thing at a time. They should not do overtime. They should be cross-functional, like in order to avoid single point of failure. Team member should be self-motivated, self-organized, and they should define what the work is, how much that work is gonna take. You train them, you always help out them as a Agile champion or a Scrum master. So when we go with the PMP perspective, Scrum is very important after 4 values and 12 principles. In Scrum, you should know what are the 3 roles. What is the role of Scrum Master? How the product owner defines the value and prioritized it. How the team select and do the work. What are the 3 documents or artifact? Product backlog, sprint backlog, product increment. What are the 5 ceremonies or event? Sprint backlog, sprint review, sprint retrospective, daily stand-up. And what are the information radiators in the daily stand-ups? Burn up chart, burn down chart, cumulative flow diagram, task board, Kanban board, how these are different, what is the difference between these information radiators, what is definition of done, ready, acceptance criteria, like what happens when a user story is accepted, rejected, what happens in sprint retrospective. You should know that thing. And what is the difference between Kanban board and task board? That's kind of important thing. What is Moscow 100 points different, like what is story points, what is user story, velocity, can you compare velocities of the team, what is Fibonacci series, affinity estimation, and wideband Delphi, what is XP, and what is pair programming, test driven development, refactoring, crystal. What is crystal actually, what is lead time, what is cycle time, how the servant leader develop his teams, and what is basically monopoly, Moscow, I already gave that, how you basically prioritized it, what is spike, architectural spike and risk spike. And if you know all these things that I just mentioned, you know your AHL, and that is more than enough for PMP exam. I hope that makes sense. Communication in 3 minutes. Communication is the most important thing that a project manager should know. The skills that a project manager should master is communication. It also includes influencing skill, decision skills, emotional intelligence, and all the ingredients of emotional intelligence. As a project manager, you need to make a communication management plan which consists of 4 hours of communication. Right information at right time to right people to have right impact. Like the communication plan should define who should know this information, how much information he should know that, when you should deliver that information, what impact that information will have, how much detail that information is needed, whom you need to share that information. So once the communication plan is ready, that has all the communication requirements for the stakeholders with all the details, the cultural condition, the consideration, the political consideration, the diversity consideration, which language you are going to use. We need to understand, do we need a push communication, pull communication, interactive communication, or the combination of all these 3 form of communication. How the communication model will be from sender to receiver, and which language it will be, and if a noise happen, how you are gonna handle that thing. What level of information is needed? Do we need work performance data, level 0 information, or work performance information, or work performance report, the highest level of information? Who needs the information, when they need that, you provide them. So once the plan is approved by the sponsor or the change control, you implement the plan in managed communication. Managed communication is more of the post office of entire PMP. And then in monitor communication, you see that your communication plan is effective or not. If not, you raise a change request to change your communication plan. That's kind of an important thing for your PMP. So if a new stakeholder is identified, you will always go and first put in the stakeholder register, then raise a change request, put in the stakeholder register, stakeholder engagement plan, and then the communication plan. This should be the sequence of that. Guys, communication tools and techniques that you use for virtual team, how you co-locate them, the collaborative tool you use is very important for your PMP exam. Information radiators used in the communication, what signs and language you utilize, and as a servant leader, you always communicate in the most obliged, the best behaved way, and how you handle the communication challenges is one of the most important thing for PMP exam. That's everything you need to know about communication for your PMP exam. Thank you. Team in PMP. There are 4 types of resources: manpower, material, machinery, money. Like we are going to talk about resource. You make a resource management plan that discuss how do you acquire the resources, you develop them, you manage them, and finally you release it. Team is the most important topic of the PMP because PMP is all about how you engage the stakeholders and how you manage the team. So in order to understand, let's discuss few documents. Resource management plan we just discussed, then team charter. Team charter, also known as social agreement, working agreement, it basically has the ground rules, the rules and regulation that the team has, how the things should happen, how the things should occur among the team members. So ground rules, this team charter is very important. Initially, project manager should make, ideally the team should update it according to them. Then we have a resource calendar, which is kind of a document when the team members will come, what will be their schedule, we need to understand that. And then RESI, which has who's responsible for what thing, who is accountable, who is consult, whom to inform. Then of course RAM, their things, responsibility assignment matrix. When a team comes, a project manager should identify their strengths and weaknesses, and he should provide the work to each team member depending upon their strengths and depending upon their weaknesses. He should provide the work according to their strengths. He need to identify the training needs requirement from the team in the start for the entire team and throughout the project for the individual team members. He should arrange the trainings for them, provide the training and measure the training outcomes, and maybe the certificates may be provided along the way. in the start for the entire team and throughout the project for the team members. Whenever a team member is lacking any skill, he should be provided training. He may need coaching, that is more of a soft skills, or a one-to-one mentoring depending upon the requirements of the need. Whenever a conflict happens in a team, a project manager should always identify the level of the conflict, the source of the conflict, why this conflict is happening, identify what is the potential solution that, and accordingly choose maybe problem solving, that's a win-win situation, or sometime maybe we need to avoid the problem at all, so lose-lose situation can be there. Identify why the problem is happening and provide the solution accordingly. Smoothing, accommodating, all these things are a good things are placed at the table. If you understand this thing, that's a good thing about the team. I'll carry on in the next video about the team. Thank you.